there are negative side effects. And the younger you are, the more prone you are to feeling the negative consequences, and they're lifelong.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Questions and Almost Answers podcast with me, Matt, and Greg. We are the little pastor and big pastor of Hampton Baptist Church. We like to tackle difficult questions, especially questions from the Bible and about life. And we've been talking about different addiction and substance in our last couple episodes, and we are continuing in our little mini series today. Greg, what is it we're chatting about?
Weed, I guess. So we're talking
Weed,
about, yes, talking about
cannabis,
marijuana.
the devil's
Um,
lettuce, Greg.
there you go. Maybe we should just do an episode about all the names.
We could go through all the, I could search it up on Google and I'd probably get quite the list of the terms for this substance. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is fascinating. We've talked about gambling and we've talked a little bit about alcohol, and today we're going to talk about yeah, cannabis. And this is interesting because this is something that well, is accessible here in Canada where we live. And so this is a question that Christians have is, this is something that's legal. How do we how do we navigate this? Is it right? Is it wrong to have it? I don't know, Greg, but we're going to chat about it.
Yeah. So, and it becomes a little problematic from a Christian perspective for a couple reasons. One, um, as you mentioned, marijuana has been legalized in Canada, and a lot of while that process was happening, while it was being, I guess, debated and all that stuff, Christians tended to lock in more on the let's not legalize it side. Um, so, um, so for some Christians, there's a sense of it's just evil. We shouldn't have anything to do with it, and sometimes a looking down on people who maybe do partake in that. So there's that side of it. The other side that makes it especially hard for us, Matt, is like how many verses did you find about marijuana in the Bible?
I don't know if it just wasn't growing there, or if they if they had if they did or if they didn't have it. But Greg, I don't really know if there's anything in the Bible about specifically cannabis. You can make some arguments that there's some passages that talk about sorcery, and often in those kinds of like those religious sort of things there was substance, but usually those kinds of substances were quite a bit stronger than
Mm.
cannabis. But like, it's not like how the Bible just comes out and talks about alcohol and says that this, like, it's
Yeah.
not mentioned really.
So we it comes back to a little bit like our last episode. There needs to be some wisdom. We need to
Yeah.
think this one through. Use the principles that God has given us on other subjects and say, okay, how does this fit here? How does this help us? And so we need to make good decisions, and demonizing people who uh, fall into the category of using the substance isn't helpful to anyone.
No.
Um, so so that's not what we're here to do.
Right.
Um, but it is available. Like I can go down the street like 2 point something kilometers probably and get some if I wanted. So it's there, it's accessible, it's legal. Should I be using it? When is it acceptable? When is it not acceptable? When is it in the category of addiction? Like all of those things, I think we need to think
Yeah.
through and come up with some good ideas for our own choices, right? And this is not fuel to condemn or to tear apart another human being, right?
Right.
This is hopefully fuel to help us make good choices in our own circumstances.
Yeah. So while we could look at scripture and we could say, okay, it doesn't say precisely, is doing cannabis a sin? It doesn't say anything like that. But I believe that instead of thinking, is this a sin or is this not a sin? What do we do? What can we get away with? Let's think about what does it mean to best live for Jesus? How do we live with the resources and the time? How are we using them for him? Because really it's not ours and our body isn't even ours. So what kind of wisdom, what kind of Christian life should we be living with this? Greg, with this topic, I think very strongly for our young people.
Mm,
And I think about that because I am the youth pastor at the church. Um, and I think I don't know if you have any statistics there now, but what I know about young people who participate in I believe smoking cannabis at a younger age, particularly
mm,
before their brain is developed, it
mm,
is quite detrimental to
mm.
their developmental health, um, to my knowledge.
Yes. And this would be jumping. This is such a big thing. And if we're gonna say so with avoiding using the word sin, could I use another word that starts with an S? Maybe stupid, right? There's a time and a place for certain things, and there's a time and a place where something can destroy your life. Okay. And so you mentioned young people. So, like we talked about this a little in our last episode, that our brain isn't finished developing until at least 25. Um, and what we know, not just some theory, this, that, or the other thing, what we know is that using substances like alcohol, we talked about last time, or cannabis is the same category, same thing. It alters the development of the brain. It shrinks your brain. Long term, you're looking at increased risks of dementia and all kinds of other things. Cannabis was presented as this almost like this miracle thing that there's no negative side effects. It's just good when there was this push to legalize it. And again, for myself personally, I have no problem with decriminalizing marijuana or other drugs. If we want to talk about that, I don't think punishing people who use substances is the way to cure them or to help society. Um, that could be a whole other episode, Matt. Maybe we
Of
talk about it,
course.
but but here, um, when it comes to the use of cannabis, there are negative side effects. And the younger you are, the more prone you are to feeling the negative consequences, and they're lifelong.
Right.
These are big things. And so here's the stats. And you point out the scary part in these stats, okay?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm
You haven't
listening.
heard them yet, so here you
Yeah,
go.
I'm ready.
So in 2022, 27% of the population, 16 and older, used cannabis. Okay.
When was it legalized here in Canada? I'm trying to think
Oof,
of a reference of that.
good question.
When?
It
Well, I'm
hasn't been
just
crazy long, but maybe you can look that up, and I'll just go on to the next
2018, October
2018.
2018.
Okay. So we got 7 years in.
Yeah.
Um, so cannabis use was the highest among people aged 20 to 24.
Hmm.
Okay. So 50% of people aged 20 to 24.
Ding, 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 ding.
Right. So
Isn't that
what
before
point
the,
so when is it most dangerous
isn't it,
to
would it be before the brain is fully developed?
that's right. So the highest usage in Canada is at the point where it's the most dangerous.
Hmm.
And then the next most highest use is those from age 16 to 19, and that's at 37%.
Ding, 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 ding. That's the
Yeah,
alarm. That's even worse.
right. And so then when you get older than 25, you've got about 25% of the population that that uses at least some, right? Um, that's that's problematic from a health perspective. And maybe in a bit we'll get into like some of the real dangerous outcomes with marijuana. Now, that being said, there are there are ways that marijuana can be used that are incredibly positive
Mm,
and help reduce human suffering in a measurable way. And it would be absolutely heartless of us to say, let's just get rid of it altogether because there are some negative
things
side
over
effects here,
here.
right?
Right.
Because there are other cases. So I think we're all aware how medicines work, right? Like
Right.
you're sick, you take a medicine, but with every pill you take, you're given a sheet that has all of these negative side effects. And marijuana is no different. Like
Mm,
it has negative side effects. Where it becomes beneficial is in certain cases, the negative side effects, which are real, which impact people's lives, but those negative side effects are less than other medications that you would use for the same thing.
of course.
So here's just, again, not a Bible thing, just Matt, you use your brain. Greg, I'll use my brain. Like, let's everybody watching and listening, use your brain. If you have one substance to treat, let's say it's chronic pain,
Mm,
that has does deal with the chronic pain, but increases the chances of all kinds of other things, does all kinds of harmful things to your body.
right.
And then you've got this one that does way less harmful things, and there's actually a few things that are actually positive for your body. So that so
Mm.
you've got that. Which one are you going to choose?
I'm toking it up, Greg. Like,
That's
I'm gonna be honest, like,
right. And why wouldn't you, right?
yeah,
So so using it medically in those type of scenarios, jump, it's a no-brainer,
of
right? Like
course.
that's um but that where I think we can go a little bit astray on this is we can start self-medicating.
Mm,
So we're thinking, oh yeah, I've got back pain. Oh, right. I'll just go use some marijuana, whatever, right? Like so the danger I think for us, and again, this is just using our wisdom, is we need to deal with underlying conditions first.
mm,
And I've had a very vivid, I guess, real life experience with that, where I had some health issues a couple years ago. Um, Dealt with some of my underlying things that were causing that. I have some type of sensitivity to gluten. I've got issues with inflammation. Matt, I cut out sugar. Okay.
that's vigilance.
Right. And I've cut out gluten. There's probably some other things I could do to be even better, but those are the two big ones for me. And some of my chronic pain issues, especially in my back, but in other areas of my life, have been reduced drastically
Mm,
by dealing with an underlying thing. Now, I could have gone out and maybe justified getting some medical marijuana. I mean, if I did physical work, like moving somebody, which is something I've done quite often at the church, right? Well, I easily be a week recovering from that. Like just
mm,
hardly being able to stand up straight and all kinds of other things. And now I actually am starting to enjoy physical work and going
yeah.
outside and doing stuff. Like there's drastic changes. So I could have used painkillers, but there was an underlying condition,
Mm,
right? And the Bible does deal with this in a very interesting way. Do you remember the story of Elijah when um, he got depressed?
yes. Yeah. I think he was, well, practically begging God to kill him or to let him
Hmm.
die.
Right. And so God doesn't give him a lecture on hopelessness or depression or whatever.
He
He gives them,
says, here's some water to drink, here's some food, take a nap.
yeah, and deals with, I don't know what was in that food. It was
Mm.
specially prepared. I don't know
Yep,
what
who
was
knows?
in there, but we can only speculate. But there was, then he deals with, see, Elijah had been in a unique place where he was isolated for a long period of time. He was in all of the conditions that would bring on depression, right?
Mm,
Not getting proper nutrition, like just the whole list. And so God deals with these underlying conditions. He had been alone, so what's he do? He brings along Elisha and
yeah,
brings a friend into his life and brings him into his social circle and reminds Elisha that there were people that hadn't rejected God, and there was just all of this stuff, these underlying things that God deals with, um, which becomes the foundation for the cure, right? The
right.
recovery of Elisha. And so with marijuana, a lot of times people are using that self-medicating for things like anxiety
Mm,
or other things like that. And they're not dealing with the underlying issues that might be putting them in that place. And so speaking of anxiety, Matt, do you know what one of the biggest side effects is of using cannabis?
can I make a guess?
You should be able to make a guess from what I said,
Is it
right?
is it anxiety, Greg?
Yeah, yeah, mood disorders in general. So if you have any leaning or your body is prone in any way to whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar or anxiety or depression, and then you take and add cannabis into the mix, your chance of experiencing a psychotic episode or going into full-blown bipolar disorder or an anxiety disorder or whatever goes up by 400%.
Mm, that's
Like,
wow.
and one of the big reasons why people are using it is to deal with anxiety. So that means that they're already
Shoot.
have some of the signs of a tendency towards those disorders. And so it's not good to self-medicate without dealing with the underlying conditions. And also it's often used for social interaction to deal with social anxiety and all of that other stuff. Well, let's deal with those underlying issues.
Mm,
Like, and I personally struggle with that. I understand it. Uh, but I also understand elements of growth I've been able to see in myself over the years. Like, Matt, you could look at me and say, "Hey, Jumpers, you got a long ways to go." Well, I've come a ways, right? Like
hey,
but
same for me, Greg.
right? And and man, I'd so much rather have personal growth than have an addiction,
Mm,
right? So why not, like, you're going to put money into marijuana, you're going to put in time into it, put some money and time into personal growth,
mm,
and you don't need it, right?
yep,
And you're better off, and there's zero side effects, right? Matter of fact, there are only positive side effects.
that's right.
So so just from a wisdom perspective, what I would call recreational use or self-medication, I think those are very dangerous. What's your
Mm.
take? Am I missing something entirely?
I'm curious how much I'm curious how much of that self-medication comes from like ignorance or from willfulness. Like I wonder, like is there more that um our government could do on educating people about this or by putting, um, either restrictions or guidelines on the use. I don't know. I'm not a politician. And I mean, it is legal now, and
Right.
people can choose to. to just use it. Um, I don't really
Is-
know. I guess the biggest thing for me is I think about my kids and I think, what am I going to tell them? What am I gonna how am
Mhm.
I going to or can I? How can I give them wisdom? How can I show them love and in these kinds of discussions? And the answer is I don't really know. I think I need to rely on God to help me in those or when talking about this or even when giving advice to my friends who might struggle or are thinking about it. Um, Sometimes I actually feel quite under-equipped
Mhm.
to have conversations about it or to give advice because I could give the statistics, but for somebody who's maybe already doing it, they're going to continue to do it. And so I always think about, what does it look like for Matt to be a kind and supportive friend? This has
Mhm.
nothing to do with marijuana. I'm going on my little
Yeah.
side tangent now, but
Yeah, and it becomes difficult again without dealing with the underlying things. Like usually people don't get um into a habit of using a substance, usually without there being some underlying stuff. And there
mm,
could be childhood trauma, there could be uh, deep insecurities. There's usually underlying stuff. Now, I'm not saying using something once. I'm talking about the habitual use, which is here's an interesting stat that I saw just in researching this a little bit is of the people who use marijuana regularly, 90% of them considered it addictive.
mm,
So whatever we can say for stats as far as, oh no, it's not really addictive. It's not like some other drugs, whatever. People who are using it will tell you,
I'm thinking this might be addictive, guys.
yes,
Yeah.
right. And and it's probably not so much because of the substance. Again, it's because of the underlying issues that people have, whether it's emotional issues or scars or whatever, that they don't deal with.
Yeah.
And and it's so much healthier, so much better. And that's what as a follower of Christ, like the story of the gospel is God loving the broken and
Mm,
mending the broken pieces. And following Jesus is hard. It can be painful because those pieces are are put back together and resetting what was broken and that can be difficult and it can be
yeah.
challenging but it's so rewarding when we get to the other side, right?
Yeah.
and and why replace the work of the Spirit and the work of God and the work of the church with something that gives a temporary relief and then ultimately makes your life worse? Like
Mm,
what I would just choose God's way over that. And I think you mentioned with their young people, I think maybe we need to do a better job of showing how excited we really are about Jesus
yeah.
to to outshine the excitement people have for marijuana,
Mm.
right?
Something that I realize isn't actually discussed, well, not often from the pulpit, but also I think sometimes it's not discussed in amongst the actual gathering of people is cannabis and substance. That's not something that's often, I believe, talked about.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's interesting because often these are like the real world struggles that, the
Mhm.
people in the body, like the church, would be struggling with. And I wonder what would it look like to, as a family of believers, talk about those things and to um, educate with love. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, I wonder what that looks like for Hampton Baptist Church.
Yeah, and I think it can be really hard um, because there's probably a whole list of things that we need to talk about more and what we can tend to do if they do come up. Well, they were talked about in a message 5 years ago, and you know what I mean? But
Right.
and I think maybe that's where something like what we're doing right now is hopefully valuable.
Mm,
Um, But I agree. I think some of these real life issues, talking about them, and for those of us that have been in church a long time, for us to have the patience and understanding that even though it's not an issue maybe for us, it
It's an
is
issue for others. Yeah,
for others, and loving them enough to listen to something that maybe isn't relevant for me.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as I do love, well, yeah, it's tricky because, what's the hierarchy of things we need to know as Christians? And
Yeah.
do we always need to be super effective? And all right, we have to talk about, we have to play the goal, we have to play the point this percentage of the time versus this percentage of the time.
Mm.
I don't know, but I think as we go and we learn and we teach, we rely on God that, what it is that we're talking about, what it is that we're discussing is
Yeah.
um, what we're supposed to be doing right now. And my hope is that this episode and this discussion can be of use and has been of use to you as somebody who's watching.
Just before we close, can I go through a quick list of some of the good times to use marijuana?
Oh, oh, yes, you can, Greg.
Okay. So so here's some of the ways that it's used medicinally that I think is a positive alternative to some other chemicals that are actually worse for you.
Mm,
Um, Obviously, chronic pain. And we could talk a lot about that because I think there are sometimes other ways to deal with the underlying conditions. But when all other avenues have been exhausted, right? Um, Absolutely, marijuana could be used there. Nausea and vomiting, especially to relieve the effects of chemotherapy.
mm,
Um, Great use for it, right?
right.
Um, Dealing with seizures. It's for some people very effective. Well,
Go for it.
using cannabis is better than seizures, right?
Yeah.
And yes, long-term use does damage your brain. It's going to increase the chances of dementia and stuff like that. But long-term seizures are not good either, right? So I,
Mm,
I would absolutely choose cannabis over continual seizures. You know what I mean? Like these are areas that it just makes sense. Um, Loss of appetite in certain situations, like people who have AIDS and other things like that, that can be a really effective medicine in that case. So there's all kinds of reasons, right? But when we're talking about self-medicating, we're talking about recreational use, that's where I think we need to pause and to
mm.
take a step back. And here's just a couple principles. If you're under 25,
Please,
please don't do it,
please. It's
right?
like self-harm.
And if you're over 25 and you made it that far and you're okay, why bother? That would be
Right.
my
I've gotten
just
this
throwing that
far.
out
I've
there.
gotten to 24 without it, and
Right. And
yeah, I'm feeling all
so
right.
right.
Not to say I'm better than, or no, that's my intention. But yeah, I know what you mean.
And so if you have a medical condition where cannabis is a legitimate treatment, first of all, I'm sorry that you're struggling, right? And if if you look at that and you're talk to your doctor and all that stuff, and that is a better way to treat your condition than some of the other alternatives, well, for goodness sake, like use it, right?
Mm,
Don't say, well, I'm a Christian. I don't know. Like, it's a substance that does some harm and does some good. If in your case the good outweighs the harm, that's a good reason, right?
right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching our discussion. If I could summarize it, I would say that the Bible really doesn't say that much. We should be wise with what we do to our bodies as we live, as we try to live a life that mirrors Jesus' example. So be vigilant and think deeply about your situation, and wait until you're older. Please, 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 all my young people, please, please. That is my only opinion that I will die for in this episode. Please wait until you're older. Uh, if you have any other questions for us, maybe other substances, maybe other discussions on addiction, please put them down in the comments below. We want to we want to be really supportive of anyone struggling in those situations, and we want to have helpful conversations on these things. And so, putting them down in the comments is the best way for us to see them. Hit that subscribe button too. My name is Matt. This is Greg. And this has been Questions and Almost Answers.